Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to our Power Lunch series. This is our Return on Energy tool. And I will let you know that we already actually had the class because when we have the classes live, I don't record because I want everyone in the class to be able to freely ask questions and have safety. So we just got done with a really wonderful class. And now I'm going to go through, for those of you that weren't able to be there live, what we actually went over in the class. So let's talk about the return on energy tool. So, what is the purpose of the return on energy worksheet? This is a tool that really helps you with productivity. So, most people have an infinite number of things to do. And the idea is if I reorganize what I do them in a different order, prioritize differently, can I be more productive than I am just trying to kind of do one thing after another? And the answer is yes. So this return on energy workshop does a couple things. So I don't know how many of you have heard of the 80-20 rule, but the 80-20 rule says that 20% of your activity of your effort leads to 80% of your results. So identifying your 20% is really important when it comes to productivity because the 20% that yields the biggest result is really what you want to be focusing your time on. And even though you have to do everything you have to do, if you at least spend a little time every day on your top 20%, or if you sort it so that it's earliest in the morning and it gets done first, then you're going to be moving forward a lot faster than if you don't do that. But this does more than that. This does more than help you identify your top 20%. It also takes into consideration your energy because some activities completely energize you. They're usually the ones that are based in your strengths and the things that you do well and things that you enjoy, your values. But other activities are just exhausting and draining. Like for me, filing is horrible. For many people in sales, making sales out calls are just horrible. They'd rather not do them at all. And so, in this particular worksheet or going through this tool or process, what you're going to learn is how that sorts out for you. And you're not only going to be able to identify your top 20%, but you're also going to be able to adapt that to your energy level. And when you're actually focusing on your high impact activities that energize you, you're actually getting more energy as you do each task. It keeps you more alert, it keeps you more focused, it keeps you more creative, and you're doing each thing well. If you're doing activities that drain you, you tend to get depleted, you tend to get a cloudy head, you tend to get frustrated, and everything starts going slower. So, this is where return on energy is really important. We're going to be paying attention to the impact your activities have and the energy. But before we do that, we're going to get started with this worksheet. The most important part of this worksheet is identifying your primary objective. One of the things that gets in the way of people being productive or people even using this worksheet well is not being clear on their primary objective. So in our class today, we were very specific about what your primary objective is. And I actually went around the room and talked to everybody to make sure that they were clear. So let's talk about that. So you can do this worksheet as many times as you want, and you can either use it for a broad objective or you can use it for a specific objective. So if you use it for a broad objective, it might be in your role at work. So if you have a job, you might want to ask yourself, how can I be most productive in my job? Or if you run a business, how can I be most effective in my business? Or you may even say, I want to do this for my whole life. How can I build a life where I'm most productive in doing the things that I want more? So, those would be examples of broad objectives. Or you may say, I want to do this for a very specific objective that I have or goal that I have. So maybe I want to train for a race that I'm going to be doing. So, how can I be the most effective in my training routine? Right. Or maybe you want to do this for your health, or once just to prove that we could do this for things that had nothing to do with business. I did it on parenting. So, what I want you to do now is choose, at least for the purposes of this class, what you're going to use as your primary objective. And part of it has to do with your role, and part of it has to do with what the primary objective of that role is. So, in a role of if I'm going to do it for parenting, for example, in my role of parent, what is my primary objective? My primary objective might be teaching my kids to be independent and effective adults, right? So that may be my primary objective. I might be another parent and I might still be doing it for parenting, but maybe I have a different objective. Maybe my primary objective is teaching my kids to behave. So everyone's objective might be a little bit different, but there are some rules to follow and some common pitfalls that people fall into that I want to make sure that you know about. So I did this once with an accounting manager. And I said, what is your primary objective? And this manager said, my primary objective is to get the reports done at the end of every month and make sure they're reconciled and accurate. And I said, do you manage a team? And they said, yes. I said, then your primary objective is not what you just said. Your primary objective, whoops, I don't know why that's going backwards. Your primary objective is to build a team that gets the accounting reports complete and accurate and reconciled by the end of the month. Okay. So if you're a manager of anything and you have people reporting up to you and you want to identify your primary objective in your job, it is usually going to be building a team that achieves a certain purpose. So if it's finance, then it's going to be building a team that achieves these financial objectives. If you are a marketing manager or a sales manager, it's going to be building a team that effectively sells or building a team that effectively markets if you have people reporting to you. If you're an individual producer, then one thing that you can think about, and this did come up on our call, is if someone had to evaluate you and it was your year in review and they could only pick one thing that they were judging you on, what is the one thing that they would judge you on? And sometimes you're going to fight that because you have a lot of things that you do in your job and you immediately see the resistance or the resentment come up because the thing that you're really being judged on, which might be like the number of articles that you're putting out, is not really what you think the most important thing is. So that requires some thinking, and taking some time to struggle over your primary objective is actually very useful time because it will help you use this tool more effectively. I work with a lot of business owners. If you're a business owner, you might say, oh my gosh, I wear a lot of hats. So maybe my objective is to grow my business. But if your objective is to grow your business, then everything related to customer service and administration is going to fall to the bottom, right? If your objective is to offer great service to your clients, then everything related to growing the business is going to fall to the bottom. So if you're a business owner, typically your primary objective is not necessarily to get clients or to give great customer service, but it's to build a business that effectively attracts clients and provides great service. And what this does is separates you a little bit and helps you see that your objective is to create a business that does certain things. It's not to do those things yourself, right? So when you're in a leadership position, you're creating systems, you're building teams to accomplish objectives. You're not just accomplishing these objectives yourself. And that changes how your activities sort and which activities are your highest priority. If you were a manager and you didn't get this, and you said, oh, my objective is just to make sure the things that are part of our department are done, then you're never going to be mentoring and growing your team effectively. And ultimately, you're not going to be considered an effective leader. So that's why this is really important. Now, you can use this tool for your own job, though. Like, I want to be productive in my role, and it's not at all about building my team, and that's fine too. So you can use this tool for multiple purposes. So we had a really big conversation about defining objective. And in the class, I made sure everybody else had a good objective and they were pretty clear on it. If you have questions listening to this video, feel free to reach out to me. You have my email and I'm happy to talk with you about it. You can also call me or text me. All right, so after we defined everyone's primary objective, then we started filling out the columns. The first column you're going to fill out is the activity column. And what you want to do is write all the activities that are related to your primary objective. So this is also important because if you've defined your primary objective, as one person on our call said, okay, for right now, my primary objective is to make sure that I get movement on the maintenance projects on my home. So then doing yoga, even though that's something this person definitely wants to do every day, would not be listed in the list of activities because it has nothing to do with home maintenance. So you're going to have many activities that you do during the day that you're not going to list in your activities. But what you want to do, for example, if your primary objective is more broad, like I want to be more effective in my business, then you put all the activities of your business in this column. So go ahead and pause the video and take as long as you want to fill out the activity column on the sheet. If you need 2 sheets, use 2 sheets and fill out all of the activities that you do, but only choose activities that have to do with your primary objective. All right, now I'm going to assume that you just paused this video and you did that activity, and now your activities column is completely filled out. So now what we're going to do is we're going to fill out our impact column. And your impact column is going to be a negative, a number. And so what you're going to do now is you're going to rate every activity on the positive impact it has on your objective. And there are a couple rules here. So first of all, the scale is going to be 1 to 10. So 10 is going to be the highest. You're going to rate each activity on its individual impact, not on the impact it has when combined with other tasks. So for example, the way you're going to look at this is if I only did this activity, but I did it really, really well, how positively would it impact my primary objective, right? So if I'm a writer and I write articles and I write them very, very well, what is the impact that this has on my primary objective? And in that case, the impact would be an 8 or a 10, right? Or maybe, yeah, for sure, a high score. But what about answering my email every day, or editing my articles? Or what about responding to complaints about what I wrote, right? Well, if I only responded to complaints about what I wrote every day, then no articles would get written. So this would have a low impact score. Answering my email definitely has some kind of an impact on my job. But in terms of maybe some people are talking to me, giving me new ideas for articles, so it has some degree of impact on my article writing, but probably not as much. So that might be a 3. Okay. If you are that accounting manager, then the time you spend with your team, building them, training them, getting them to do things on their own should be rated very high. Whereas the time you spend jumping in, doing things yourself might still be rated high, but it's not going to be rated as high because it helps the team get their objective, but it's actually doing the fishing yourself, not teaching the team to fish. So teaching the team to fish is going to be your higher rated impact scores. So now what I want you to do again is pause the video and take your time, but go through every activity and give it a score of 1 to 10. Try to get some spread in there. I had somebody in the class say everything's clumping together. It's all the same number. That's not what you want. You really want some spread. So think of things relative to each other. But each activity, as if you're only doing that activity, how much impact does it have by itself on achieving your primary objective? Okay, welcome back. I assume now that you have your activities column filled out and your impact column filled out. So we're going to go to the third column. The third column is a little bit more complicated. This is your energy score. So in the energy column, you're going to use both positive and negative numbers. And I thought about this might be a little bit difficult for people, but I think it's really important because it really describes what these tasks do to you. And this is a return on energy tool after all. So some tasks really energize you. And I want you to look at each of the tasks in your activity list and think about the ones that energize you. These are the ones that you love doing, that you could do longer than it takes, that you get lost in. Sometimes time goes by and you don't think about time because you're enjoying doing it. You feel like you do a pretty good job at it usually, and you just generally enjoy. These you should score from 1 to 5, 5 being the most energizing, 1 and 2s being mildly energizing. Now, some of these tasks on your activity list drain you. That means you really don't enjoy doing them. In fact, when you do them, you kind of get tired. Maybe you drag your feet, you procrastinate. It's really not fun to do. Maybe you get a little bit of a kick at the end because you're done. But if the only kick you get from these particular tasks are because you're done, then it's a drainer. And what you want to do is assign it a score of -1 through -5, with -5 being the most draining and -1 or -2 being mildly draining. Now, some tasks on your list aren't really going to energize you or drain you. They're going to be kind of really neutral tasks, like here I am taking a sip of water. This doesn't drain me and it doesn't really energize me enough to give it anything other than a 0. So you're welcome to give zeros to many of the activities on your task. So again, pause the video and fill out your energy score. The ones that energize you, a +1 to a +5. The ones that drain you, a -1 to a -5. And then we'll get to computing your final score. All right, welcome back. So now we're going to compute your final score. You're going to have your number from your impact column and your number from your energy column, and you're going to add the two numbers together to get your score. Now, because we use negative numbers in your energy column, sometimes you're going to be subtracting. So let's say you have an 8 in your impact column, and this activity really energizes you, and it's a +4. Then 8 plus 4 is 12. But let's say you have an 8 in your impact column and the activity drained you, and let's say it's a -3. Then it will actually be 8 plus a -3, which takes you down to 5. So what you'll find is you'll have your original numbers all stacked up in your impact column. Once you take the energy into account, then certain items are going to rise up. These are the ones that energize you. And so they become more important. And the ones that drain you become less important and they will go down. Okay. All right. So what do your scores mean? Well, I'm going to start by telling you that if you just look at the impact column and you look at your scores in there, remember we talked about the 80-20 rule, how 20% of your activities will get you 80% of your result. So 20% of your effort gets you 80% of your result. If you look in just your impact column, you're going to identify your top 20%. But when we add energy to it, things are going to be similar, but they're going to be just adjusted a little bit to take your energy into account and help you be more effective. So when you look at your final scores in the last column, if you're doing it on an Excel spreadsheet, it's kind of fun because then you can just sort everything and you can see naturally how it falls. So I have estimates of what should be your top third, your middle third, and your bottom third here. But not all of you are going to fall within those estimates. So if I say, your top third will be scores of 10 to 15, and maybe you only have 2 items on your list that are even a 10 and everything else is 9 or below because you're in a draining job, then you can think of what is my top third. And you don't necessarily have to think of the score raw from 10 to 13. Same thing with your bottom. I say scores of 3 or less is probably your bottom third. But if your scores don't line up exactly to these, then you can just do top third, middle third, bottom third. Okay. So your top third, I call capitalize. These are tasks that are high impact for you and they also energize you. You want to build your entire strategy around these tasks because it helps you stay energized. When you're doing these tasks, you're going to get more energy for the next task. And so you're going to be getting the best results when you capitalize on these tasks that are in the top third. Let's jump to the bottom third. In the bottom third, these are the tasks that drain you. They slow you down. They're really hard to do. And they also don't get you much impact in return for all that effort. So really, if you can eliminate them, that's the best scenario. Let's eliminate them. If you can get somebody else to do them, or if you could figure out a way to live your life without doing them at all, those are kind of the top 2 choices. But for most of us, we have to do these tasks and we might not have anybody to delegate to. So if we don't have anyone to pay or delegate or have somebody else do these tasks for us, then what you want to do is contain them. And containing them means clunking them into small doable chunks so that they can be completed in 15 minutes or less, because you want to reduce that energy drain. What you want to think about is all the gas in your tank is leaking out while you're doing this task. So you want to get it done as quickly as possible, or you want to get a little bit of it done as quickly as possible, and then stop the drain so that you have energy left to do other things. And then maybe you come back and do another 15 minutes later. All right, so that's how you manage your energy around your lowest scores. Those are the ones you want to contain. And for most of you, they'll be like less than 3 on your list. Now, the middle ones, all the ones that fall in the middle, those are systemized. And what we talk about when we talk about systemizing are creating habits and routines to make these tasks more automatic and less draining. So anything that you do the same way, in the same order, over and over again, you train your brain to do on autopilot. The more your brain is doing something on autopilot, the less it's using energy. So you can actually reduce the amount of energy drain that these tasks cause you by creating habits and routines to do them. So, as an example, let's say you hate doing accounts receivable. Most of my clients who have businesses hate doing accounts receivable. If you have an accounts receivable process or system and it's just a list of steps that you have written out, but you do it at the same time every day, every time, what you're going to end up finding is that your accounts receivable process gets less onerous. For a lot of people, it's okay, I have a clause in my original contract that says what my accounts receivable process is. When I first get the bill, okay, I have this email that I've already written. I've worked on the wording. It's very polite. And it just says, hey, I haven't received your invoice yet. If you've already mailed it, please ignore this, but just wanted to send you a reminder in case you haven't, or in case there's a problem, just let me know. So very sweet email. So now it's not so draining because you've already got the email written. All you have to do is put the person's address on and send it. And then if they still don't respond or they still don't do this, then this other email goes out, and then this, and it goes all the way down to when you send them to collections, right? So you have an entire process down. Every time somebody's late on a bill, you just automatically follow the process. It takes energy the first few times you do it, but once you do it over and over and over again and get it into a process that you're comfortable with, you'll start doing it on autopilot and you won't even think about it anymore. And that's what systemizing does to your energy. Okay. So I think that's it for our slides. Yes, it is. So I'm going to stop sharing right now. And I just want to thank you for taking the time to sign up for the class if you did, and for listening to the recording. It's a really fun time going through these tools. What I like about them is they're very practical and they help you with your effectiveness. And it's something that you can kind of turn around and do in a couple of minutes. So if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out. And I would be happy to answer any of your questions, and feel free to visit the website, get on the email list if you're not already, so that you can get invitations to the rest of our classes. Thanks a lot for listening. Bye-bye.